Hare Krishna. India Heritage Foundation London extends a very warm welcome to every one of you for today's session where we are reflecting on the life of late Queen Elizabeth II. Let us begin by invoking the blessings of Srila Prabhupada and their lordships. Please join me as I offer the prayers. नमो विष्णुपदाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्ति वेदांता स्वामी नित्य नामिने नमस्ते सरस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेषा शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देश तारिणे जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंदा श्री अद्वैता गदाधरा श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंदा जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंदा श्री अद्वैता गदाधरा श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंदा हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्णा हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्णा हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्णा हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्णा कृष्णा हरे 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 राम राम हरे हरे जय राधा कृष्ण चंद्र राधा कृष्ण चंद्र राधे जय राधा कृष्ण चंद्र राधा कृष्ण चंद्र राधे जय कृष्ण बलराम जय वृंदावन धाम जय कृष्ण बलराम जय वृंदावन धाम जय गौरा निताय जय गौरा निताय जय गौरा निताय जय गौरा निताय जय जय प्रभुपाद जय जय गुरुदेव Prabhupada, Gurudev Prabhupada. Harinam Sankirtan Mahayagna ki jai, Hare Krishna Mahamantra ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Hare Krishna. This is these are special moments occurring in this country and in this world. This is at this point in time, there are mixed emotions. On one side, the country is mourning, and also there is celebration. Mourning the loss of a beloved queen, Queen Elizabeth II, who ruled as the queen for 7 decades, whose reign saw more than 14 prime ministers in this country, who was a constant figure in the nation's fabric. And also this is a time when the new king, her son, is being sworn in, and there are celebrations which have begun. So this is a moment for all of us to reflect on the life of this great personality, Her Majesty, the Queen Elizabeth II. She is held in great awe and reverence and with a lot of affection. She holds a very a dear place. She has a very, very special place in the hearts of many, many people in this country. Firstly, being born in a royal family is itself a very, very extraordinary birth. We hear from the Srimad Bhagavatam, Janma Ishwarya Shuta Shri Bihi Edamana Madav Puman. Kunti Maharani says, Janma Ishwarya Shuta Shri Bihi. These are very, very desirable positions in the material world. People hanker for these things. What is that? This is considered to be the symptoms of prosperity and great fortune. What is that? Janma Ishwarya Shuta Shri Bihi. Janma, a great birth, born with a silver spoon, born in high aristocratic families, born likewise, birth in the family of transcendentalists. These are extraordinary, very, very rare. Likewise, Janma Aishwarya. Aishwarya refers to wealth, possessing great fortune, great wealth. Shruta refers to education, knowledge, possessing great knowledge, vast intelligence in the material world. Shribihi, beauty, personal beauty, bodily beauty. So these are all awarded to one who possesses great piety. When a conditioned soul engages in pious activities and has accumulated enormous piety, then those pious souls are given these possessions of great birth, Janma, Aishwarya, Shruta, Shribihi. So we see there is disparity. Some people are born in poverty and some are born with a silver spoon. So this disparity is explained as due to the laws of karma. Our actions determine our future births. So certainly For somebody to be born in such a family is itself a testimony of enormous piety that the soul has performed in the past life, that one gets to be born in such a family, in great opulence, in great aristocracy, in positions of great power. So uh, this is something that we can reflect, we can learn, we can take lesson from uh, her life, among many other things that we will try to reflect and explore. And it is, as I was going through some glimpses of the coronation of the king, and there were proclamations, defender of faith, and everybody, and then he acknowledges uh, the queen or the head of the state is the defender of faith. So the queen, late queen, she was the supreme governor of the Church of England, and it is as a monarch, it is her duty to uh, practice a faithful life, to believe in God, and at the same time help people also become believers in God. And there is uh, in many places, it is worthy to note how the queen would fall back on her faith when she would go through tough times in her life, and she would always acknowledge that in many places when she would give her address to the people. She would talk about how personally she has benefited from being a believer in God. And here is a short glimpse which talks about where we can see insights of how the queen was actually a believer, and she felt strongly for helping others believe in God. So I'll just play this short video.
Two things stand out about the Queen: her constant sense of duty and her devotion to God. The Queen's faith was evident from an early age. At the beginning of World War II, 13-year-old Elizabeth handed her father, King George VI, a Christian poem which she later quoted in a public speech. On her 21st birthday, she dedicated her life to her people and asked for prayer.
God help me to make good my vow.
In 1953, over 38 million people tuned in for the coronation. Here the Queen publicly promised to maintain the laws of God and the true profession of the gospel. After the birth of her first grandchild, Peter Phillips, the Queen shared her hope that her family would follow Jesus, saying, "I would like nothing more than that my grandchildren should hold dear his ideals." In 2002, Her Majesty chose to boldly speak out about her faith, saying, "I know just how much I rely on my faith to guide me through the good times and the bad." The Queen's annual broadcast has become a much anticipated part of the Christmas Day traditions for families across the nation. In recent years, it's been a platform she's used to openly share her faith. 8.3 million of you tuned in 2012 and saw the Queen talk about God, who sent his son to serve, not to be served, and in doing so restored love and service to the centre of our lives in the person of Jesus Christ. And in her 2014 Christmas broadcast, she shared the gospel with the nation, saying, "For me, the life of Jesus Christ, the Prince of Peace, whose birth we celebrate today, is an inspiration and an anchor in my life. A role model of reconciliation and forgiveness, he stretched out his hands in love, acceptance, and healing." And to that we say, Amen.
It is a great fortune for the people of any state to have as their leader someone who believes in God, who is eager to carry out the orders of God. This is it is helpful to reflect that it is especially the duty of anybody in any leadership position to facilitate their dependence journey towards God. And to this end, the Srimad Bhagavatam says, Pitananasya, Jananiranansya, Daivam Nanasya, Namochayet Samupeti Mrityum. That don't become a father, don't become a mother, don't become a demigod, don't become a king or a queen, don't become a spiritual master. Namochayet Samupeti Mrityum. If you cannot deliver, you're dependent from the cycle of birth and death. Don't accept these positions of leadership. So this is it is important to reflect on this lesson, that if we wish to do good to anybody who is in our who wishes to take guidance from us, who is our dependent, the best service that we can render to them is to help them become a lover of God. And it is to this reason the executive head of the state, be it the king or the queen, they were custodians of the Bhagavata Dharma. And Lord Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita, he says, Imam vivasvate yogam proktavan ahamabhyayam vivasvan manave praha manur ikshvakave bravit. So Krishna is saying that this message that I'm sharing with you, actually I had spoken this originally to Sun God. He was a chief executive head of the entire Sun planet. The entire planet has one ruler, and that was Sun God, Vivaswan. And Krishna says, I first spoke this message of Gita, Bhagavad Gita, to him. Imam vivasvate yogam proktavan ahamapyayam. And then what did he do? Vivaswan manave praha. He handed over to his son, to the next monarch. Who was that? Vivaswan manave praha swayam bhuva manu. He was an emperor. And then Manur Ikshvakave Pravit, and Swayam Manu handed over that knowledge to Ikshvak Maharaj. And like that, this was the chain of the disciplic succession through which the saintly kings, they received this transcendental message of Bhagavata Dharma. So Krishna says, Evam parampara praptam imam rajarshayo viduhu sakale neha mahto yogo nashta parantapa. So Krishna is saying, like this, generation after generation, Raja Rishi, these are not ordinary kings. They were Raja Rishi, saintly kings. Because unlike ordinary kings, who have a duty to attend to people's material well-being, providing them good food, shelter, clothing, amenities like water, roads, protection, all of that. These are all material necessities that the king has duties towards. Apart from that, he has a higher duty because he is known as Naradeva. Naradeva means he is representative of God. That is the king's position. He's a representative of God. He has a duty to execute the mission of the Lord. Naradeva. So therefore, these kings were custodians of the Bhagavata Dharma, and they would rule in such a way that not only people would be provided all comforts in their material life, but they would be given all guidance and protection in their spiritual journey. the king was responsible for their spiritual progress. He had his, it was his duty to make sure that people don't indulge in sinful activities and cause they uh, hamper their own progress. So he would ensure that the regulatory principles are followed in the kingdom. People don't violate dharma. He would encourage saintly persons, patronize them so that they can propagate the message of Bhagavata Dharma. So king had a very, very important role to play in the lives of people, their material and spiritual well-being. And that is why these kings were known as Raj Rishi. The responsibility uh, of these saintly kings was so great that even uh, if there was bad weather, if there was some drought, if there was some famine, the king was held responsible. If the seasons didn't change in time, if it was too hot or they were too cold, the king was blamed. Why? Because if the king was following dharmic principles, then automatically there would be peace and prosperity in the kingdom. So we have these expressions in the Vedic culture of Rama Rajya. People would hanker to be in the kingdom of Lord Rama, ideal king. Because and likewise there is a description about how the kingdom flourished under the reign of Maharaj Parikshit, under the reign of Yudhishthira Maharaj. These are all great saintly kings. It is said during that time, the pasture lands were muddied with the milk of cheerful cows. The cows were so cheerful and so jolly that they would let abundant milk and so much milk that the pasture lands would be muddied by their milk. The seasons would change in time. The mountains were full of minerals. The oceans were full of jewels. The forests were full of medicinal herbs, plants, trees, vegetation. The grains, the fruits, everything, vegetables, everything in abundance. The rivers were always flowing in full, perennially. And this was because of the uh, uh, saintly king Yudhishthira Maharaj's conduct. Likewise, descriptions of various kings we understand. When the king would himself be devoted to executing the orders of the Lord, he would be a servant of the Supreme Lord, then automatically there would be prosperity upon all his subjects. And this is explained in great detail in the Srimad Bhagavatam. So a great responsibility. It's a great fortune for somebody to have as their leader one who is God conscious. One is God conscious. We see in the kind of place that she held in people's heart. It is very touching to see how people were very attached to the Queen. Let me share this with all of you, to some glimpses into how she was held in great affection and respect. This is from the BBC. They were interviewing people who had come to the Buckingham Palace to offer their tributes, their respects when they learned of this news. And
sad. It's heartbreaking. Absolutely heartbreaking.
What did she mean to you?
The Queen means everything to me like my mum means to me. She was a fantastic lady. She'll always be a fantastic lady. She'll always be a part of my life forever. And I'll never forget her.
She meant a lot to me. For someone my age, I've got quite old grandparents who were born in the 1917 and 22, so she was part of their lives too. So talking to them, they knew her growing up, and it takes a thread back to that sort of era. And now I hear people talking about a king and a coronation, and it puts conversations I had with them in my head of when they would talk about a king, a coronation. So it feels very strange to have this person that's been the head of everything in my life go.
The McGrath family are from Dublin and are on holiday in London.
Well, our two countries have been so close over so many centuries, and we've had a tough past, but it goes without saying that she was an iconic woman and a role model for women of all ages and all colours and beliefs. And my mum has been a fan of the Queen for so many years. She was a fan of her integrity, and she's very sad. Yeah. Yeah, we shed a tear today.
Throughout
So like this, everywhere there is an outpouring of thanks. There's an outpouring of love and affection towards the king, towards the queen. People are sharing how pictures of how she had visited their country, because she would travel a lot. She would be traveling around the world. Especially, she had a special commitment to the Commonwealth nations, and she would seek ways and means to connect with people and win their hearts. And many of them are sharing about what she meant to them, and a larger than life, a motherly figure who conducted herself with a lot of grace, with a lot of kindness, and so we can see, like we saw, the reaction of the people and how they're feeling separation, and they have all good wishes for her onward journey. So this is so we can see from the a person who is devoted to the Lord. They possess all good qualities, and which is appreciated by everybody. They are dear to everyone. This is especially the position of one who is a pure devotee of the Supreme Lord. So it is said that Yasyasti bhaktir bhagavata kinchana sarvair gunais tatra samasate suraha harau abhaktasya kuto mahat guna manorathena sati dhavato bhai. It is said that a person who has dedicated himself in the service of the Supreme Lord, who is the lover of God, he or she, they possess all good qualities, those good qualities which is seen in the devatas, in the demigods, also become manifest. All good qualities. Sarvair gunes tatra samasate sura. Sarvair gune. All good qualities manifest in the character of a devotee, in the character of a pure devotee of the Lord. And we can see this in how Srila Prabhupada he spent a brief 12 years amongst the devotees and members of the Hare Krishna movement, but he had such a deep impact in the lives of millions of people, and he will continue to have that impact because he was a pure devotee. And he, as we see, there are more and more, there are already 60 plus biographies being written about him, and people are reflecting about all of his actions, how he was so kind, how he was so gentle, how he was so concerned, caring, and so on. All good quality. Everybody can appreciate this. Everybody can appreciate. Dhira, dhira, janapriya. The one who is a devotee is dear to the sober and to those who are not so sober. Dhira, dhira, janapriya, priyakaro. This is actually a glorification of the Goswamis by Lochandas Thakur, where he says how the Goswamis, by their conduct, by their devotion, they were exemplifying great qualities. That everybody had so much of trust and confidence. Both people who were sober, dhira, and adhira, those who were not sober, everybody would take their words very, very seriously. So, one who is following this path of Krishna consciousness, automatically he or she, they manifest all good qualities and they become dear to all, and everyone becomes dear to them. We find this stated in the scriptures. Who is a sadhu? Who is a sadhu? It is said, Titikshava Karunika Suhurda Sarvadehina Ajata Shatravaha Shanta Sadavaha Sadhu Bhushana. These are the ornaments of a devotee. What is that? Titikshava. A devotee is very, very tolerant. Titikshava. Karunika. Full of mercy. Very merciful. Titikshava. Karunika. Surdaha Sarvadehina. He is a friend of all living entities. All living entities, not just human beings. All living entities. He is a well-wisher. Why? Because he has got the vision that every living entity is a part and parcel of Krishna. They are currently in different bodies, but they all belong to Krishna. And so they have great love and affection for every living entity, and they work towards doing welfare for all living entities. Ajata Shatravaha. They consider nobody as their enemies. Although some people may become enemies, but they do not consider anybody as their enemy. They desire, these were the words of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur Maharaj. He said, a Vaishnava desires the greatest good even for the worst enemy. You can see there is no malice. Their heart is pure. There is no malice. There is no contamination. Amalam. They're free from all vices. So therefore, they're able to desire the greatest good for the worst enemy. Unless somebody's heart is pure, they cannot have these feelings. It does not come. The normal tendency is we are struggling with envy, we are struggling with greed, we are struggling with anger. But somebody who is devoted to the Lord, certainly gradually they overcome all of these things, and then they're able to feel for the larger good of everyone. The larger good of everyone. There were some interesting. It was wonderful to note some of the statements and comments made by the Queen. They reflect that she was a lady of wisdom. And let me share some of them, which can help us better appreciate the person that she was. So she said in her coronation day, the day when she was declared the queen, and this is her mood. I have in sincerity pledged myself to your service, as so many of you are pledged to mine. Throughout all my life and with all my heart, I shall strive to be worthy of your trust. These are very wonderful words. Anybody, I shall read that again. I have in sincerity pledged myself to your service, as so many of you are pledged to mine. throughout all my life and with all my heart, I shall strive to be worthy of your trust. Speech on her coronation day, June 2nd, 1953. So we can see this was the mood of the Queen, which made her very special. They are very clear that although they are in such an exalted position and they command, there is so much of wealth and there is so much of influence and there is so much of, despite all of that, they were very clear that uh, they are servants of the public. They're public servant. Although people are pledged to serving the Queen, she also knew very well that she is not just meant to merely enjoy everybody's respect, everybody's adoration, everybody's glorification. No, she knew that there are duties that I need to perform. I need to work for my people's welfare. I'm a servant of my people, and she would sometimes sign off in her letters as your servant, Queen Elizabeth. This is actually a so much in line with uh, uh, the culture amongst the Vaishnavas, how we address each other and how we always remind ourselves of our position as a servant. And this was very, she was very, very clear about this. And this is very important, so that sometimes a person in a position of power, a position of great wealth, can get carried away and they can become puffed up. They can become very puffed up about their position. Like we see in the case of Lord Indra, he was very puffed up. Very soon we are observing this Govardhan festival, Govardhan Puja. So the background of that festival is that Lord Indra, he became very puffed up about his position, his power as the king of heaven. And to humble his pride, Krishna enacted this Govardhan Leela, so that he always remembers that he is a servant of God and he has duties to perform for everybody's welfare. So this is, we see such great examples in the Vedic culture of kings who embodied these qualities. They knew very well that they are servants of God, and they are, although they are a leader of the kingdom, they're heading the entire kingdom. They knew that they were serving the people by giving them protection, serving them by giving them opportunity to make progress in spiritual life. They knew that they were serving them to become God conscious. So this was, and they would also conduct themselves in a way that it would be, not only it was within their heart, but it would also be clearly manifest that they are servants of God. They're servants of God. So we see in the history of so many dynasties, like for example, the just some months back, I believe yesterday was Rath Yatra in Brighton, and so the Rath Yatra celebrations are ongoing here in the UK. Every other week there is one or the other Rath Yatra that's coming up. So this Rath Yatra festival is been part of the culture of Jagannath Temple, where this Rath Yatra is being observed for many, many thousands of years. So there, before the Rath Yatra would begin, the king of Orissa, so he would come before the Ratha, when their lordships, Jagannath, Baladev, Subhadramai, that's Lord Krishna, Lord Balaram, and their sister Subhadramai would be mounted on their chariots. The king, he would come before these chariots and would take the humble position of a sweeper, and he would hold a golden broom and he would sweep the street, just to signify that He is a servant of God, and he is executing the orders of God as an obedient servant. And this way he would set a great example to the people. How every one of us are servants of God, and our goal of life is to engage in the loving service of God. We may be in various positions, but if we keep this as the center point, and we are all servants of God, then it is very easy to organize a society, regardless of what our abilities are or what our social positions are, because there is a common thread that everybody is a servant of God. And by that act of sweeping the road, the king taking such a very humble position, doing such a menial service, he won the heart of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and he had the good fortune of having a personal association of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who was reluctant to meet the queen otherwise. But when he saw his devotional qualities and also the earnest appeals of other devotees who were very eager to recommend him, like Ramananda Raya, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, and others. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu accepted him and gave him a personal audience. Likewise, the kings of Kerala, the Travancore royal family, so they pride themselves in calling themselves as Padmanabha Dasa, as the servants of Ananta Padmanabha Swami, which is today recognized as the richest temple in the world. So these kings always had this, were very clear about this, that they were ruling the kingdom and discharging their duties as a servant of Padmanabha. So he would pride himself in saying, I am Padmanabha Dasa. I am a Dasa of Padmanabha. And likewise, the kings of Jaipur, they would always pride themselves as servants of Thakurji. So there is a grand temple of Radha Govind Mandir in Jaipur, which even today, to attend the Mangalarti, thousands of people, 3,000, 4,000, Kartik Mas will have 5,000 people coming to have darshan of their lordships. And the king made a formal declaration saying that Radha Govindji, they are the proprietors of the entire kingdom. And myself and our royal family, we are the servants of Radha Govindji who are administering on his behalf. So this was the mood that they would always conduct themselves in this mode. That the king, the proprietor, the owner, the maintainer, the protector is the Lord, and we are agents. We are acting on his behalf as a representative. We are a servant of the Supreme Lord. We are not supreme. Krishna is supreme, and we are representatives. And like that, they would conduct themselves. And this is precisely the reason why the Battle of Mahabharata was sanctioned and conducted by Lord Krishna, because Krishna did not want anybody else to become his representatives. Krishna wanted his pure devotees. Krishna wanted Yudhishthira Maharaj, who was his pure devotee, to become the emperor of this planet. Because if his pure devotees would be at the helm of affairs, if they would be they would be the kings and they would be the emperors, then the whole planet will find peace under their direction, because they would be very dedicated to execute the orders strictly as per the Lord's desires. And in that way, the mass of people will benefit. So Krishna was very anxious that his devotee should be the head of the state. And that is why Krishna personally, he conducted the entire battle of Kurukshetra so that all the unwanted beads can be plucked and thrown away. All the Kauravas headed by Duryodhana, all of them, they were unfit. They were very eager to be to gain the kingdom and rule over the planet. They were very eager. But Krishna did not approve because they were not devotees. They were envious of Krishna. They were envious of devotees of Krishna. So Krishna is very concerned. If my representative, Yudhishthira Maharaj, if he becomes emperor, then the whole world will benefit under his administration, because they will all get an opportunity to make progress in Krishna consciousness. Because Maharaj Yudhishthira is a devotee, and he will encourage the whole planet. He will make arrangements for people to become Krishna conscious. So this is uh, uh, these are all very fine sentiments, and we can see that it's very it's a pleasure to see such sentiments being shown by demonstrated by the Queen. And let's move on with many. There are some more interesting comments and words shared by the Queen. So this was, you can see the next one. She was giving a condolence speech to the families of victims of 9/11, the terror attack in New York, where nearly 5,000 people perished. And she said, "Grief is a price we pay for love." Very wonderful statement to say. Grief is the price we pay for love. So this is the nature of material attachment, material affection. That when anything that we are attached to, maybe our home, maybe our spouse, maybe some celebrity, some leader, anything material, if you're attached to it, always results in grief. Because in our temporary existence, either our object of love will depart or we will depart. But departure is for sure. And as much there has been attachment, that much will be a pain at the time of departure. So she's an experienced lady. So she's saying, grief is the price that we pay for love. Yes, that is why in the so Kunti Maharani in the Srimad Bhagavatam, she prays that, my dear Krishna, as a woman, naturally, there is attachment to her family and there is attachment to her father's family. So on her father's side are all the Yadavas, Krishna, Vasudev, and to all of them with whom Kunti Maharani has great affection. And at the same time, there is also affection to her children, the Pandavas, and the family members. So she's praying that let my bonds of affection be severed so that I can always remain only attached to you, only attached to your loving service. Because family affection, especially for a lady, is for everyone, it is very difficult to overcome. But we see such wonderful examples of great personalities, great devotees like Kunti Maharani and others who are setting such a great example, that we should not, that the whole purpose is how to become detached in material life. Which is why from the very beginning, the children are sent to Gurukul. Whether you are king's son or you're a big rich man's son, whoever you are, you live in the residence of the Guru as a menial servant, and they're trained in brahmacharya, so that by the practice of brahmacharya, by the practice of Krishna conscious life, one becomes very clear. A good foundation is set in their life, that ultimately they should not be enamored by anything material, and they should. They were very clear about their goal of life. Their goal of life is how to develop love for Krishna. And so these kings and queens, although they were at the they were the head of the state, they would be anxious when they can retire, when they can hand over the responsibilities to a worthy descendant, to their son, and when they can take up vanaprastha, when they can go to the forest. And we find all these great kings, they retired. They were not holding on to the power till their last point. No, that was not the culture. Why? Because they were anxious. That no, this they were as a king. They have what is their position? They have as an emperor. They have access to all the wealth on the planet, all opulence, all fame, women, family, relations, everything. Everything is at their disposal. But still, they were anxious to give up all these things and go to and take Vanaprastha. Why? Because they were very clear. All these attachments is simply a cause of misery. One has to prepare oneself for the next birth. One should prepare oneself so that one does not have to enter and take another birth. And for that, one has to become free from all attachments. So although they will be in the midst, although they were in the midst of all this opulence, they would not be, while they would discharge their duties, they would remain unaffected. Those are Raja Rishis. They would remain unaffected. They were not entangled by their opulence, by their family, by their name, fame. No. We find innumerable examples. Ambarish Maharaj, we find Dhruva Maharaj, Parikshit Maharaj, Yudhishthira Maharaj. Great examples of how they conducted themselves, how they were anxious to develop love of Godhead. So these are yes. So anything that we have affection, attachment in the material world, it is going to end up in grief. So these are all some very it's a pleasure to see such statements from the late Queen and many more. So I think let me read this, the last one. She said in a Christmas broadcast in 2002, she said, I know just how much I rely on my own faith to guide me through the good times and the bad. How wonderful. If I were to hear my leader talking about how they're drawing from their faith to deal with challenges, it is inspiring for me also. If they are saying, if I look upon, like it is said, Yadyad acharati shreshtaha tat tad evetaro jana sayat pramanam kurute lokastad anuvartate. If whatever examples are set by great personalities, Yadyad acharati shreshtaha. Shreshtaha means great personalities. Whatever examples they set, the whole world will follow. Sayat pramanam kurute lokastad anuvartate. Common people follow. So if the head of the state is saying that today whatever I am is because of the Supreme Lord, and I'm able to deal with all the challenges in my life by the blessings of the Supreme Lord. It is a great example. So common people will be inspired to follow their example and also try to become a believer, try to make progress in their faith. It's a great service if somebody is setting this example. And it is a fact. It is not some. Anybody who is following this path of devotion to God, who is following this path of Krishna consciousness, it is all of it. It is our personal experience of how it is so empowering that one can handle day-to-day stresses very easily. We can see how people are finding it difficult to deal with their day-to-day stress, and because we are on this journey and we have a little experience on this path, it is greatly empowering. And this is exactly what Krishna says, that somebody who is on this path, they are undisturbed. Even in the face of greatest of calamities, greatest of dangers. A person on this path of Krishna consciousness is unshaken. And there are many great examples of great devotees, how they endured their challenges by their dependence and surrender to Krishna. So these are some very wonderful words of wisdom from Her Majesty, late Queen Elizabeth II, who was held in such great esteem by the people of this country, who embodied many fine qualities, who dedicated her life in the service of her people, who won the affection of people not only of this country but of people around the world. And today we join the members of the India Heritage Foundation London. We join this nation and the world in mourning her loss, and we express our sincere condolences to the royal family and to the people of this nation for the loss that we're all going through. And we pray that the Supreme Lord, Lord Krishna, gives the strength to everyone who is feeling the loss to endure the loss, to bear the loss. And we pray that Lord Krishna blesses her on her onward journey. So with that, we'll close for now. Let us chant one round of Hare Krishna mantra, and after that, if anybody has any comments to share in this regard, you're very welcome. We'll chant 108 times. We'll chant Hare Krishna Mahamantra 108 times in sync with Shraddha.
Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Radha Shivasadi Gaura
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Ram Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Ram Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Ram Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Ram Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Ram Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Ram Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Ram Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Ram Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Ram Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Ram Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Ram Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Ram Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Ram Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Ram Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Ram Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Ram Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Ram Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Ram Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Ram Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Ram Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Ram Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Ram Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Ram Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Ram Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Ram Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Ram Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Ram Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Ram Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Ram Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Ram Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Ram Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Ram Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Ram Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Ram Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Ram Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Ram Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Ram Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Ram Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Ram Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Ram Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Ram Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Ram Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Ram Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Ram Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Ram Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Ram Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Ram Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Ram Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Ram Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Ram Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Hare Hare.
So that was 108 times chanting of the Hare Krishna mantra. If anybody has any comments, any thoughts to share, you're very welcome.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
It is.
Yes, Indu Mataji, I think is that you? You would like to share? Please go ahead.
Dhanyavad. Beautiful lecture.
Thank you.
No, I meant it. I just remembered 5 years ago, I was with Krishna's Kripa, with Krishna's grace. I was invited to the palace or to the garden party.
Oh.
It normally lasts about 3 hours. And I was fortunate to meet Prince Philip and Majesty the Queen. And her presence was very calming. She's a beautiful lady with a wonderful presence. And I think it shows the, like our own Sant, Sadhu Sant. When we meet them, there is calmness. And there were 2,000 people waiting to see her. But the way she conducted everything was so beautifully and calmly, and it impressed me because her presence had an aura, like she was giving that love and friendliness and that peace to everyone else as well. So you don't need to come forward and say, I want to be with her, in spite of all the others. So I didn't feel I wanted to, push myself forward in any way. It just being in her presence was beautiful enough. And I wish her Sadgati, safe journey ahead. And the words he used are very true. She acted like she was servant of God and servant of the people she served. And let's hope we can continue to do that. Because I keep on reminding myself all the time. Dhanyavad.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for joining today. And we look forward to meeting again next week at the same time. And then, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.